Sometimes it's very embarrassing and sometimes it's very frustrating when you make a statement or you tell someone something and then it gets misconstrued because it's misunderstood or someone heard you incorrectly. And that's a little bit of what happened in John chapter 21 as we near the end of that chapter when Peter and Jesus are talking with one another, and Jesus is in the process of restoring Peter. And then Peter, because maybe he's a little uncomfortable, he wants to change the subject, and he notices John, and he says, well, what about him? And then Jesus responds to him, and he says, well, what is that to you, about John? And he makes a statement that eventually will be misunderstood, at least by some others in the future. Jesus, in response to Peter, says, if it is my will that he remain, talking about John, that he remain until I come, what does that have to do with you? You follow me. So the saying spread abroad among the brethren that this disciple would not die. Yet Jesus did not say he would not die. He just said, if I will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? A statement made by Jesus and misunderstood, like that's never happened. And we understand that that does happen, and unfortunately it happens much too frequently. And in this case, as we think about the circumstances, obviously Jesus and Peter were the immediate two people who were there who Jesus said this to Peter, and so Peter would have been the one who heard it. Was John close enough to hear that? There were 7 disciples there altogether, including Peter and John. Did the others hear that? I don't know. I guess Peter had to relay this information to them, and I'm not really sure that Peter misunderstood it. I'm not really sure that the other disciples misunderstood that, and certainly not very long after this, after Jesus' ascension into heaven, they were enlightened with the Holy Spirit, and they would have understood things like this to a much greater degree than maybe they did prior to that. But I'm not convinced that really Peter misunderstood what Jesus was talking about. But in relaying the details, when John relayed these details, when John wrote them down, when Peter relayed these details, and he told about the events that happened here, one of these great times when they saw Jesus after his resurrection, someone heard what they said, but they got the wrong idea. And then it says that it was spread abroad among the brethren that this disciple would not die. They misheard, and a rumor got started, and it may have not had serious repercussions in the long run, but it was wrong. It was incorrect, and well, that's pretty serious. And John set the record straight when he wrote this record and recorded it and said, that wasn't really what he said. It was a misunderstanding. We've got to be careful when we hear what Jesus says, that we are really listening, and that we're listening carefully, and that we understand what he says before we go and repeat it to someone else, and maybe we repeat it incorrectly. Let's use both ears. Let's listen. Let's focus. Let's concentrate, and let's understand everything that Jesus says.